Hello, I am Jack from Gambling Insider, and I'm here with Ohad Straschnov of Soft2Bet. To begin things, can you walk us through the process of obtaining a license in different markets?
Definitely. So at the first stage, we obviously research and evaluate markets throughout the world. We monitor for new regulated markets, and we see if it's of any value to the company. Then we obviously review the requirements, technical and corporate requirements, and decide if it's worth for the company. License fees, technical requirements, certifications, whether we need to engage with land-based or not, which differs from different regulated markets. Then we liaise with local councils, in most cases, to assist us with all the requirements, application, filling the forms, UBOs, directors, and the next and eventual stage would be to actually file the application, which then takes some time. Regulator reviews the requirements, regulator reviews the application, comes back to us with more questions. Eventually it takes around 4 to 6 months until you get the license, and then the fun starts, which is the technical implementation of everything we've reviewed before. We work very closely with the product and the legal teams, and we basically enter the market.
Thank you, great answer. Yeah. And can you walk us through the biggest challenges you face throughout that process next?
So I think the biggest challenge for compliance and legal teams in a regulated market is the diversity of the regulations. Each market, and I think it's good because we have a lot of work, and otherwise we wouldn't. But I think each market's got its own unique specifications, technicalities. No market is similar to any other market, and I'm talking not only within the European Union. For example, if you go to US, you go to Latin America, you go to Africa, nothing resembles another market. So it's very challenging, not only for compliance team, but mostly for the product teams, because they need to accommodate all these technical requirements. They need to make sure that we're fully compliant with all the technical requirements. And if you go to MGA and you go to Denmark, you might need to implement different reportings, different products, different verticals, different features. RG tools differ, and I think that's what makes it what we love in this world. But it's a very big challenge for the company.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also costs.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So kind of on that theme, the current legal and regulatory landscape in Europe is rather complex. How do you see this impacting the industry in the year ahead?
So when I actually reviewed this question before, the first thing that came to mind, I think, was the financial impact. We see very recently 2 big markets, such as Italy and Romania, changing their internal regimes, whether it's in Italy for a new tender and increasing the license application fee for 7 million euros, or in Romania, when they introduced a new regime, which impacted the economy and impacts operators, introducing guarantees for existing licensed and new licensed operators of around 7 million euros. This has got a huge impact on the operations, both for new operators and existing operators. And I think it makes a big difference, because if you want to go to a new market, if you're not already in it, you need to sit down, you need to see the numbers, you need to see the requirement, you need to see if it's worth it. And if it's not worth it because of the numbers, even if the market is big, then it's a problem. Not to mention if you're already operating in a market and all of a sudden they change the regulation. Not only technicalities, which in some cases might be easier to accommodate, but financially, if all of a sudden a license fee costs 250K and they increase it to 7 million euros, that's a huge difference, because you're already operating in the market, but now all of a sudden you need to change your flow. You need to change, everything you counted on before. So when I started in the first question saying that we review technical requirements, we review licensing requirements, corporate requirements, financial are most important thing before we go into a market. And if it changes during your time of operations, it makes a big difference. And I think that right now in the European Union or European markets, this is the main thing that affecting the market as a whole.
Yeah. Awesome, that's a very thorough answer. Thank you for that. And I was thinking about the industry more generally. How do you think the industry can work together with each other on compliance?
So, in my previous experience working in the UK for a long time, one of the things that I liked, not only in the UK, I think MGA also follow this approach, is consultations. And when I'm saying consultations, I mean consultations with the industry. Okay, there are many regulators that would like to make some changes, and again, I just gave an example of Romania and Italy. They're making changes to the financials. They don't necessarily consult. Okay, they don't necessarily check with operators what do they feel, and I think that's a very, very important thing. First of all, consult with the industry. Eventually, you're the regulator. Whatever you decide, you have to implement. The operators will have to accommodate. It's an industry, and we want to operate. But I think that regulators have a lot to gain as well. So if they consult, if you want to make changes to RG features, for example, you want to make affordability checks, you want to put a threshold, I think best thing to do before you actually implement new regulations is to consult with the industry to see what the industry. Now, it's not only necessarily that the operators will reject or will say that they're not willing to accommodate. In some and many cases, operators do think about the players. And eventually, we're all working together, operators, suppliers, regulators, and the end users. So at the end goal is to find a mutual path for a much better product, much better industry, much better environment. And I think we share the same goal. So I would, as a compliance director, I would much more appreciate if a regulator consult and ask my opinion, even if it disregards it eventually. If it asks for my opinion first, might be better implementation and better for the industry as a whole.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. So we've just got one more question to wrap up today. And that is, what is the day-to-day work like for a compliance team in the gaming industry?
First of all, I think it's the best day-to-day work in the industry, if you ask me. I think both compliance and legal do a very, very important and pivotal work in a company, in an operator, in a B2B, in a supplier, in a software provider that provides an end service to the gaming industry. The day-to-day looks very diverse. That's the main thing I like about it. You wake up in the morning, you come to the office, you can deal with something in Romania, changes in the regulation for Romania. 2 hours later, you might have to deal with something related to a Greek player. 3 hours later, there is a Portuguese player complaining about the money that he can get. So what I'm trying to say is that the role of compliance in the industry is very, very diverse. Every day you have to do something different. Every day you learn something different. You liaise with many providers, many suppliers, many local councils, many regulators in different places in the world. I personally love it, and I think that's what makes it beneficial, but also very important, because eventually there is the management, there is the board. In order for them to make a knowledgeable decision about a market, about a strategy, about an approach, they need to have the full picture. Now, people tend to think that the role of compliance is saying no to everything, but the opposite is the truth. It's first saying yes, but how can we do it better? How can we do it in a more compliant way? And I think that's what makes it challenging, and if you ask me, that's the best part of my day-to-day role.
Okay, lovely, yeah.
And thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that was a very compelling answer. Thank you for that, and thank you again for your time. We appreciate it. Cheers.
Thank you for having me.